What's up, YouTube? Nighttime vlogging at the waterfront again. You know what I mean? Damn sea. Niggas not even coming to they want to say what? So today we're going to try and find out what people know about the most famous, or who people think is the most famous South African ever, right? Dead or alive. And I already know who most people are going to think is the most famous South African, right? We all think we know. Everyone has their own opinion. But tonight, we want to hear what other people think who the most famous South African person is, dead or alive. Let's go. Ma'am, how are you? I'm fine, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, in your opinion, who do you think is the most famous South African ever, dead or alive?
I'll say it's the first black president, the late President Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. Okay, why would you say him?
I would say that because he's the first black president in South Africa, and what he did for the country was not only recognized in Africa, but internationally, and the values that he left behind, his beliefs, it's something that also captured the entire world. And he's not just loved by, locally or by the country or in Africa, but his legacy remains and even remembered internationally.
Wow, so true, so true. Ma'am, why are you not an influencer?
I don't know what
Beauty tips, you are so beautiful, you are everything. So ma'am, please tell the world why you are not an influencer.
So it's so much.
Such a thing. Is it? Sure, thank you very much, ma'am. Such a superstar. Yo, nighttime is the right time. You see, when you're vlogging at night, speed, and you're running, and you're doing what you need to do, keep going, keep moving. That's what life is about. Holla. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Good, and you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you, ma'am. Ladies, who do you think, in your opinion, is the most famous South African ever, dead or alive? And why?
I want to say the most famous.
Yes, in your opinion, right?
I think
and
the
why?
most famous, I'm going to give two.
Okay.
The most famous that's dead, obviously, I think would definitely be Nelson Mandela. Everyone knows him, what he did for this country, and they even overseas, they're like, oh, Mandela, they know him. So I think he's the most famous out of here. Otherwise, in terms of who's alive, I think Trevor Noah is probably a very good option of who's famous and who's still alive and well known.
Yeah, I was going to say Trevor Noah.
He went overseas, he did what he did. He had the Daily Show, I think it was called the Daily Show. He did all of that, and I think that makes him pretty famous, and he went overseas.
Yeah, I would give this a similar answer. Yeah, I would give a similar answer.
Similar answer.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, guys. Are you guys influencers? And if not, why not?
Not really.
I think
we like making content, but we won't call ourselves
influencers.
Okay.
It's a bit of a different thing.
Yeah.
So you guys are like content creators, not influencers.
I would say we create content.
Okay.
I think I'm a content creator.
So you're not
I just make my own fun content.
So you're not influencers,
No.
but you are people of influence.
To our family and friends, yes.
Oh, nice one. Ladies, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And if you are not on YouTube or becoming a TV presenter, God is not going to keep your space in heaven for you. Thank you. Stay blessed. Thank you. Bye. Alrighty. So this is my opinion, right? The most famous South African of all time, dead or alive, who could it possibly be, right? That is the question. Now, for me, there's two possible answers, right? So the two possible answers are the obvious one, because obviously he was the most recent person, and that is Nelson Mandela, right? And the second option, which a lot of people tend to forget, don't give credit to, and I don't know, for some reason, it's just like, not forgotten, but when the word famous comes up, they always seem to omit this person. And this person was a legend as well, you know what I mean? And that person is Shaka Zulu. Alright? So now we're going to get into the pros and the cons as to who I think should be or is the most famous South African ever. Hala. Let's start with the pros, right? So the pros, let's start with Nelson Mandela, right? Nelson Mandela is arguably our generation's most famous person because he fought for freedom, he brought unity to the country, and he used sport. Let's don't forget that. He didn't use politics. As a politician, he used sport to unify the country. Nelson Mandela served 27 years in prison for the love of his country, for the love of his people. Nelson Mandela traveled the world spreading a message of love, anti-hate, anti-apartheid. And we all know that, right? And there's nothing more that you can say about Nelson Mandela because he is, after all, the father of the nation. The father of the nation. Without a question of doubt, right? What else can we say about Nelson Mandela? Nelson Mandela was the embodiment of freedom, the embodiment of liberation, the embodiment of struggle. And Nelson Mandela did the unthinkable because Nelson Mandela, people thought when he came out, or upon his release, right, people thought he was going to take like revenge or something like that. You know what I mean? He was going to be like a dictator type of a person, right? But that wasn't the case. In fact, he came out and was preaching unity. So that alone speaks volumes about the type of person and the personality that he had, right? And his vision for the future. And most people would have been filled with hatred, to be honest, but he wasn't. He didn't. And I don't know, man, for some reason he was not even bitter. He came out smiling, which is more of a shocker because most people would be filled with anger and revenge, but not him. He just wanted unity, he just wanted happiness, he just wanted everyone to get along. That was the great Nelson Mandela. What more can we say? There's nothing more we can say about him, right? Right. Pros when it comes to Shaka Zulu. Oh my goodness, where do we start? Shaka Zulu, bro. Jeez. Okay. Shaka Zulu, bro. Shaka Zulu. What more can we say? So Shaka Zulu, bro. Shaka Zulu was like this ultimate warrior. Africa's answer to Alexander the Great. You know, he was the embodiment of war. He was a warrior. He was a conqueror. He was unstoppable. He just wanted to be the king of all kings. He wanted to, I think his ultimate vision was to have one nation, what word can we put there? He just wanted to have one people, one nation, one people. He just wanted to be one individual, right? But as time went on, I don't think people actually saw, or I don't think people actually got what he tried to achieve, you know what I mean? But because he was such a conqueror, and because he was such a unique personality, most say he was a loner, right? And the thing is, he conquered many tribes, right? In a way, that was a bad thing. But if you really come to look at it, he expanded. Now let's talk from the Zulu perspective, right? And what he did, right? So what he did was, he expanded the Zulu nation, right? And what he actually did, by conquering other tribes and absorbed them into his tribe, right? Therefore enlarging the size of the Zulu nation. And another pro that I would say is that a lot of people in the world know about the Zulu language and about the Zulu people based on Shaka Zulu himself. Now, if that is not a pro, I'm telling you, there is no other person in the history of South Africa that has that effect on a world like what Shaka Zulu had. Because of Shaka Zulu, people in the world know about Zulu, they know the language, and they know about the tribes, and they know about South Africa based on that. And he did that when there was no internet, no TV, no radio. It was just letters being thrown in bottles and messages going from left to right. The impact he made in Southern Africa, the defeat of the British, that sent ripple waves throughout the world. And remember, the only difference that I think, or the major difference, is that Nelson Mandela's popularity and fame was helped through other mediums, you know, through TV or radios, and obviously the internet at the time. There wasn't so much internet, but yeah, there was internet obviously there. But whereas in Shaka Zulu's time, the word spread like wildfire about this one man in Southern Africa that had so much power, so much influence, that even the Western nations were afraid of him. You know what I mean? So imagine having that kind of power and that kind of influence at a time when there was no social media, no internet, no telephones, no TV, and you can pull that off just by word of mouth. Man, that is impressive, I have to say. The cons. Okay, the cons. The only really con I can think about from Nelson Mandela's perspective, to be honest, is that Nelson Mandela divorced his wife even though she didn't want the divorce, right? He chose politics over his family, right? So it wasn't a bad thing, you know, to be honest, from his perspective, because he wanted what he wanted, and thereby, you know, and she really didn't want the divorce, but he chose politics and he was devoted to politics. And I think that is possibly the biggest con that I can think of from Nelson Mandela, you know, just divorcing his wife and choosing politics, you know. Maybe he did it for safety, you know, because she was going to be harassed like what happened to Winnie Mandela, and he didn't want that for his wife, you know. But at the end of the day, a lot of people look at that as a negative because he left his family and, you know, and he went into politics, you know. We will never really know the reasons why, but he chose politics, right? And then the second con would be, a lot of people are saying that the preferred candidate for the deputy president was not the person that was initially agreed upon, you know. That's another con. And then another thing is that before he came to power, they had agreed that there was going to be land distribution, there was going to be all these things that he never brought to fruition. And some say he was talked out of it by white monopoly capital. So yeah, those are the cons I can think about Nelson Mandela. The cons of Shaka Zulu. Damn, where do we begin with that now? Okay, obviously he was a warmonger, right? That's a con. The defeat of other tribes. That was just a whole another negative. Shaka Zulu he was not a good listener per se, you know. What he wanted was what he wanted. And if there was no wars, he was going to create wars. It's like he lived for wars. And this is just according to the documentary that was flighted on TV, you know what I mean? So he was a warmonger, he lived for war, he was a total dictator, and some are going as far as saying that he had no feelings whatsoever for the human beings. So I don't know how far true that is, but according to the documentary, yeah, Shaka Zulu seems to be a real evil man, you know? So yeah, that's about the cons from my side. Oh my days, my bus just left me. It's time to start investing in a vehicle so you don't have to be stressed for time, you know what I mean? Damn, imagine being left just as soon as you're about to get on it. Hala. My final opinion on the matter, right? So, if we take the pros and the cons and the era and everything that went into making these two great human beings, right? My vote would obviously go to Shaka Zulu. Why? Because of the influence he had, because of the era that he was in, the impact he had, the defeats, the unifications, the expansion of the Zulu nation. If you take everything that Shaka Zulu did within his lifetime, all the achievements he did, and you compare that to Nelson Mandela, I can promise you that Shaka Zulu obviously outshone Nelson Mandela by a yard, by kilometers, by a whole generation, by light years. You know what I mean? Because he did what no other African has ever done and probably will never do. So in my view, Shaka Zulu is the most famous, the most influential, and without a shadow of a doubt, the original father of the South African nation, not just the Zulu nation. But of course, he was Zulu, so yeah, that's all they knew, he was Zulu. But I promise you, Shaka Zulu was living today, he would have unified all the tribes that he could have got his hands on, made them all into one Zulu nation. Trust. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Holla!